Now that the 2023 fantasy football season is officially over, it is time to turn our attention to the 2024 season. And for many of you guys out there, you should still be able to make waiver wire moves this week. So I have 7 players that might be available on waivers right now that you need to pick up, plus an extra handful of players that might be on waivers, but most likely are already rostered, but would be super cheap to acquire in trades as a throw-in. So the name of the game for this video is going to be just a bunch of players that could gain value this offseason due to free agency or other changes situations, and I am going to continue to spread Carson Wentz propaganda in Superflex leagues. If anything, the 2023 season has proven to us that backup quarterbacks are not only valuable in case of injuries, but potentially even league winners. And we have also seen quarterbacks that we have more or less left for dead in fantasy football just completely revitalize their careers as bridge quarterbacks that play well enough to earn a second chance. Carson Wentz checks both of those potential boxes if he were to be given a chance in 2024. He is not a great NFL quarterback. Don't hear what I'm not saying. He's not a great NFL quarterback, but he is definitely a very good and serviceable fantasy football quarterback. And being available in 60% of Superflex leagues on MFL is just insane to me given the free upside at the most important position in those leagues. But as I was scrolling through my rostership data this week, I was pretty surprised to see Keaton Mitchell available in so many leagues given the upside that he showed this year. I get that a season-ending knee injury is less than ideal for an undrafted free agent running back, especially when it happens so late in the season, but Keaton Mitchell could work his way right back into the RB1 role for Baltimore next season, depending on how the Ravens address the position in the offseason. Both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are free agents, and he already beat out Justice Hill before his knee injury, so it is possible that Keaton Mitchell could return to that RB1A kind of upside if the Baltimore Ravens don't add a major running back in free agency or the draft. But even if they do add a high-profile running back, then at the very least, he would be a very high upside handcuff like so many other rostered backups in the league. Absolutely worst case scenario, he ends up just being like the RB4 on the team in the summer, and you drop him for someone better after the NFL draft. Another running back that could benefit from multiple impending free agents ahead of him is Deuce Vaughn for the Dallas Cowboys, as both Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle are set to hit the market in the spring. Now, I don't think that Deuce Vaughn has team RB1 upside like Keaton Mitchell does. He just doesn't profile as that type of a player in the NFL, and I think Dallas wants a more prototypical ground and pound kind of player as their RB1, but I could definitely see Deuce Vaughn turning into a Jalen Warren or a Tyjae Spears type of RB2, still with handcuffs upside in 2024. So he definitely needs to be rostered through the offseason just to see what happens with the Dallas Cowboys backfield. And the final running back that could gain value from free agency is Eric Gray of the New York Giants, as both Saquon Barkley and Matt Breida are entering free agency in the spring. Like Deuce Vaughn, I don't really think that Eric Gray ends up as the RB1 for New York in 2024, although Gray definitely profiles more as an RB1 in the NFL than Deuce Vaughn does. But again, it wouldn't shock me to see Eric Gray have a change of pace RB2 role with handcuff upside. Think of guys like Joshua Kelly at the very beginning of the year with the LA Chargers, or Devin Singletary more recently to end the year, or perhaps the ultimate upside being a Zach Moss type of player if the starter ahead of him were to miss extended time. Worst case scenario, you end up just dropping him for a better stash player in the summer if the Giants add multiple running backs ahead of Eric Gray through free agency or the NFL draft. But definitely a fantastic stash just to see what happens in the Giants backfield. All right, wide receivers now, and if you have watched our videos recently, you know that Justin is a huge fan of Dontayvion Wicks, but it's time for me to throw my hat into the ring here as well. To my surprise, Dontayvion Wicks is still available in almost 10% of the leagues that I'm pulling from on MFL and available in 25% of leagues on Sleeper still. That is absolutely insane to me that there are still hundreds of Dynasty leagues out there where Dontayvion Wicks is not even rostered. So if for some reason you're in one of those leagues, Wicks is a must add because I can just about guarantee you that he'll be mentioned in every single article or video about sleepers to draft or trade for all offseason long, and his price is just going to skyrocket from where it is today. So definitely be adding Dontayvion Wicks if he's still available on waivers. Two other wide receivers that could each benefit in separate ways from free agency this year are Andre Yoshivas and Charlie Jones of the Cincinnati Bengals. Both of them are very interesting stashes because they each play a very different role on this Bengals offense that could fill a gap that's left by either T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd left in free agency. Andre Yoshivas is an outside X type of wide receiver, and we saw his role increase over the past couple of weeks with Jamar Chase out of the lineup. So with T. Higgins set to be a free agent, Yossi Vaughn could be the direct beneficiary if he were to leave and not be replaced as the outside wide receiver across from Jamar Chase. But Charlie Jones, on the other hand, profiles more as a slot wide receiver that would replace Tyler Boyd if he left in free agency. And of the two, Jones is actually way more interesting to me personally, as he was a 4th-round pick last year, also had insane production in his final year of college at Purdue that was essentially like 75% of Yossi Vaugh's production in 3 years at Princeton. So Jones has the profile, he has the draft capital, and I think is actually more likely to fill the void of the veteran in front of him actually leaving in free agency. So while both receivers are definitely worth being added and stashed through the offseason to see what happens in this Bengals receiving room, if I only had to be able to pick one, then it would definitely be Charlie Jones. And then lastly, I want to revisit Harrison Bryant as a stash player that I highlighted just a few weeks ago. He had one really good game with Joe Flacco back in week 13, but has since been relegated back to a backup role with David Njoku just completely dominating to end the year. But the reason that Harrison Bryant is an interesting stash is because he himself is about to become a free agent and could gain value by signing as a team's tight end 1. Think like a Gerald Everett 2.0 essentially. And since I already made this argument a few weeks ago, I'm just going to insert that piece into this video right now. Don't forget, Harrison Bryant was once a very coveted tight end stash coming out of college in 2020. He's 6'5", 250 pounds, ran a 4.7 40, and had a ton of production in college with over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns in his final season in 2019. If you can pick up Harrison Bryant right now, he not only could be a solid starting option to end the year, but he could also be a huge offseason winner if he hits big in free agency and finds himself a fantastic role on a new team. So definitely be adding Harrison Bryant if he is available. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I have a few more names of players that are already very highly rostered, so it's unlikely that they're available on waivers, but just in case, double check for all of these guys and add them immediately if they are available, or at the very least, they should be extremely cheap to acquire as like a throw-in in your next Dynasty trade. So the first one is Joe Flacco for very obvious reasons. He's leading the Browns to a Super Bowl win, and I am totally on board with all of this that's going on with Joe Flacco right now. So definitely add him if he is available. Then we have Michael Carter, who is now with the Arizona Cardinals and has looked pretty solid in the limited amount of work that he's received with Arizona. James Conner is a cap casualty in the offseason, so maybe there's potential that Carter becomes like the RB1A in the offseason, but at the very least, Michael Carter could be the primary handcuff since it seems like he's already surpassed Amari DeMarcado based on both of their usages against Philadelphia this past week. Then we have Israel Abanikanda, who looks to be in line to get the first crack at the RB2 job in New York next year, with Dalvin Cook entering free agency and also just not really being good anymore. So a primary handcuff for an elite running back in a very valuable role on his team is definitely someone that I want to roster. And then we have Chris Rodriguez, very similar story as Abanikanda. Antonio Gibson is a free agent, so Chris Rodriguez is probably going to snag the RB2 role in Washington as a primary handcuff to Brian Robinson. Then there's Demario Douglas. Don't really think I need to explain this one, but he is still available in some leagues, so just double check just for the sake of it. And then we have Trey Palmer, who could fill a role in the Bucs receiver room with Mike Evans set to enter free agency. I doubt that he actually becomes the wide receiver 2 on the team, but hey, you never know. He could be Josh Palmer 2.0 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then there's Juwan Johnson, kind of like Demario Douglas. I don't really know why he's not 100% rostered, but after the performance that he just had in championship week for fantasy, no less, he needs to be added on every single roster out there. And then finally, we have Jelani Woods, another favorite of Justin's that he highlighted in his stash video a couple weeks ago. He's big, he's fast, he has a potential role in the Colts offense as the tight end 1, and Michael Pittman is also a free agent, so maybe his target share increases in 2024 when he is fully healthy. But as I just mentioned, Justin also put out a stash video recently that lists another handful of players that he wants to roster in the offseason, so if you missed that one, then you can check out that video right up here.